Alright everyone, it is Dokkan time again, and today's how to build is going to be for the new STR Tien. I kind of like this unit. I think he's a cool, fun unit. We finally got a Tien that's actually good in the game. I think the last time we had a good Tien was probably maybe World Tournament AGL LR Tien and Chaozu. I know everyone's always loved the Int Prime Battle Tien, but he's just never been a good unit. He's just always had good animations, but now we got good animations and a good unit. This is a legendary summon, and this is right before the global Dokkan campaign, which is the size of a worldwide download celebration campaign, like 2 weeks before. So I would not suggest summoning for him, unfortunately. There's just going to be far better units coming out. Although I will say this guy is going to be really fun to run, good animations. He could probably be used for a couple niche kind of areas of the game. But overall, I just cannot suggest summoning for him, especially in the current setting of the game, as there's a lot of lock switching, slot switching, locking mechanisms going on with these boss fights. There's a lot of dodge canceling, and this unit does not have guard, and he's very picky. He's a very technical unit, actually. So let's just kind of drop in there. You know how this whole how to build works if you've watched my previous videos. We go through the description of the unit, the breakdown of the unit. We go through their defense calculations, their attack calculations, if I can get them accurate enough. And then we go through the build suggestions, and then the roll tips, last and not least. So let's just kind of go right in. So as far as his breakdown for him goes, he doesn't have a lot of 200% options. Now, you're going to see this 200% on the Dokkan info website, but the problem with the Dokkan info website is that, yes, it's showing this AGL Kid Goku, but that's only because all of these new 220, 250 liters is that they're always giving 200% HP. So the program that Dokkan Info is using is not accurately translating it. You're actually only getting 170% attack and defense out of this Kid Goku lead. You're only getting 170% attack and defense from this Cell lead. And it's just really unfortunate because his only 220% option is the new physical Tao. Which is not a bad thing. He is his ideal link partner and rotational partner. So I would say that's a fine. But it does mean, like, unless you've actually summoned for Tao and you got Tao, then you probably don't have a proper home for Tien, and that's where it's going to become a problem to use him, is primarily with the lack of, well, teams to use him on, as far as 220s go. Now, he is one of the new double leaders. We haven't gotten too many of these, but he does lead 200% for Final Trump Card and Earthlings. I don't like these two together. Earthlings is not an amazing category still, and Final Trump Card is pretty much all units that don't really intermingle with Earthlings. So the mixture of these two is interesting, but also doesn't really work currently, at least not at time of recording. If somebody can make an amazing team with both Final Trump Card and Earthlings that are actually supporting each other link-wise, category-wise, then please do make it and show me, or at least tell me in the comments below, because I would love to see a proper good team that you can build with these two categories. Now, his super attack for his 12 key is the Dodon Ray. He raises his attack for 1 turn, and he lowers the enemy's attack and defense. And then for his 18 key super, he is greatly stacking his attack and lowering the enemy's attack and defense. So what this does mean is that you always want to get your 18 key, so you can greatly stack every single time. That would be preferred. But now going into his passive, he does have an intro, which is the song in the background right now, if you can hear it. It just activates right away. There's no restrictions to his intro. Key +4 to 8 randomly at the start of turn for 10 turns. I will tell you this right now, if the fight lasts longer than 10 turns, you will start struggling to hit his 18 key point, to the point of where you actually need an orb changer actively on rotations in order to get enough key to hit the 18 key. Losing 4 to 8 key a turn is pretty rough. Basic effect is key +2, attack and defense of 250. All allies are getting defense plus 30% for 2 turns, so he's an off-rotational support unit, which does make him pretty valuable in general. Before receiving an attack, he gets damage reduction rate of 75%. Now, the only problem I have with this right here specifically is it says before receiving attack. So if he gets hit with a normal and then a super attack comes out immediately while he's in slot 1, you're not going to get that 75% damage reduction. It's only on the first attack. This is an LR Pycon situation right here. After receiving an attack as the first attacker in a turn, defense plus 400%, damage reduction rate is 30%, and key plus 3 attack at 100% and defense plus 200%, and damage reduction rate by 20% for 3 turns. So the interesting thing to note about this is that because we have this extra damage reduction for 3 turns, what this does mean is that on the next appearance, if he was in slot 1 again, you would actually have 95% damage reduction on the first attack. After that first attack, you would still only have 50% damage reduction. So if you knew for 100% certainty that you were going to get hit with the all worst game-ending super attacks, you could technically throw him into slot 1 and he could tank it and it'd be fine. But you do need to have this activated. So this means that he is only safe if it was on the next turn after he was already in slot 1 on that first attack. It's a very peculiar unit, very peculiar. He does have another passive. As the second or third attacker in a turn, attack plus 100% and defense plus 200%, and attacks are effective against all types, and for 4 turns. And then attack plus 400% and defense plus 200%, and great chance of evading enemies' attack when attacking. So the interesting thing about this right here, this is a very interesting thing, and I'm going to get back to this really soon. But anyways, so what this means is that if you start Tien on turns on slot 1 or slot 2, you can switch him in the next rotation and have both effects active at the same time. So if you start the battle turn 1, you throw him into slot 1, he's going to get that extra 100% attack and defense 200%, key plus 3, and then 20% damage reduction. On the next attacking turn, he still has that buff. So if you put him into slot 2, you'll also get this attack plus 100%, defense plus 200%, attacks effective against all types for 4 turns. So this right here is just a matter, it only says 4 turns so that it protects him for floating. So if you float him off on the 3rd slot, he'll come back in slot 1 and still have his slot 2 or 3 buff. So ideally what you want to do with Tien is you want to put him in slot 1 or slot 2, and then the preceding next turn of his appearance, put him in the opposite slot position of 1 or 2 to keep stacking both of those passives constantly and simultaneously. If you by chance lose that, he is going to be defensively much weaker and offensively, obviously. So I can't state enough that it is very important that you keep an eye on out where he's at on his previous rotations and flip-flop them back and forth. Now, the problem with this is that he needs a solid unit to be with him that can reliably be in both slot 1 and slot 2, just like him. So the unit, of course, in question would be Tao, because Tao has like 80% damage reduction at all times, so he is ideally able to go in slot 1 or slot 2 just with Tien. Not many units in the game can actively go back and forth between slot 1 and slot 2 and give Tien his links. So just keep that in mind. Now, when receiving a Ki Blast super attack, he'll have a 50% chance of nullifying and countering with a tremendous power. And then if it's a Kamehameha category enemy, he just straight up nullifies the Ki Blast super attack straight up, which is super nice. That's a really nice ability. There is plenty of bosses that have Kamehameha. He does have an active skill, Tri-Beam, causes ultimate damage to enemy, Ki plus 24 for 1 turn. You can activate this when there's a Turtle School or a Kamehameha category enemy, or starting from the 5th turn from the start of battle. His link skills are Crane School, Infighter, Dodon Ray, Incredible Adventure, Guidance to Dragonball's Fierce Battle, and Legendary Power. Now, unfortunately, Tien doesn't not fit on a lot of categories. He's on his final trump card, he's on Earthlings, World Tournament, Dragon Ball Saga, Bond of Master and Disciple, Bond of Friendship, Earthbred Fighters, and Tournament Participants. I think this Tien is on the most categories of any other Tien unit in the game currently. I think the only ones that can actually like maybe be close to the same or more is just the Prime Battle Tien. Otherwise, any other Dragon Ball Saga Tiens are just gonna have like almost no categories. As far as his best link partners are going, he doesn't really have a best link partner. He's got, you know, one day when Krillin gets his EZA, he's going to be a tournament participant or a world tournament support unit, and he'll have a lot of links with Tien at that point, and he'll be super nice to have. So I think in the future, that's at least a good partner. Not right now at the time of recording, but, you know, once again, Golden Week Goku, he gets a EZA, good partner in either slot, so you can keep slot switching in the future. Power Power Kid Goku is a very good partner, as he is also supporting along with having a decent amount of links with him. The problem with Kid Goku here is that he cannot flip-flop between slots 1 and 2 all the time. Kid Goku is more of a slot 2/3 unit, so it's best to just keep floating Kid Goku on a team with Tien. And then, of course, you have LR Bulma. That would be a perfectly fine partner, only in slot 2, once again, though, slot 2 or 3, not really meant to be in slot 1. The only reliable partner, honestly, that can go into slot 1 and 2 at the same time is going to be Tao or the AGL Kid Goku. I don't think AGL Kid Goku really fits on the team necessarily, but I think he does enough to the point where you can definitely decide, like, if you weren't running double Tao, you could, if you wanted to try and run... Actually, I don't think they're on this... I just realized I don't think they're on the same team. Yeah, it's Dragon Ball Saga Earthbred Fighter, so you can't even throw this Kid Goku on to a double LR Tien team. You could throw them onto the same team with Tao. Tao would be fine. But ideally, if you're running double Tao, then you're just going to have him... You're just going to have Tao with Tien. You're not going to have a reason to run... Goku along with Tien, and I think that's the hard point, is like finding his placement on other teams that will be worth using him, because he's only going to be 170% attack and defense at the very least anyways, on any other teams other than his own and Tao's. So although yes, he does link well with some other units, they have to be units that can be flip-flopped and still give him some decent buffs. So there's one thing I wanted to touch up on before we get into the defense and attack numbers, and that is his active skill. I have tested this on a private server, so you take it with a grain of salt. If you activate the active skill in slot 1 or slot 2, it will give you the buff from his passive for either his slot 2 buff or his slot 1 buff. So theoretically speaking, if you had Tien, let's just say, in slot 1 the previous turn, and you wanted to put him in slot 2, or you had him in slot 2 the previous... No. Basically, if you want to put him in a different slot position and still keep both of the buffs, you can use the active skill to gain the buff by activating it in that specific slot, and then put him in whichever slot you want to. So if you want to put him in slot 1 no matter what, use his active skill in slot 2. It'll carry over the actual effect of it, and I have video proof of that. Let me just pull that up. Now, as I said, this is on a private server, so take it with a grain of salt. But remember, Tien doesn't have any dodge chance. This is a build with no dodge. There's no dodge on this Tien right here. And he has no built-in dodge other than when he has actually been in slot 2 or 3. So we're going to use the active skill right here while he's in slot 2. So he's in slot 2 and we've used his active skill. This is actually really good animations right here. Now, we're going to switch him over into slot 1. Now, it doesn't matter what we give him on key orbs, but, you know, just give him key. I don't know why I was so slow while I was doing this. And dodge. So, that is at least private server proof that this can be done, where he can gain the buff from slot 2 into slot 1, as long as you use the active skill in that specific slot. So I think that's a good tech to use with him, especially in a late game fight. It's saved this specific rotation so that he doesn't get sealed by this Jiren. So I think it's definitely something to keep in mind of if you do get this unit. All right, so today I'm going to be using Blood Raven's defense numbers. I have compared them to Halvard's, and Halvard's is confusing me because he has a 12 key super buff, which Tien does not get any defense on 12 key super, so I'm not really sure why he applied that to his calculation. So for now, I'm just going to go with Blood Raven's. Blood Raven has similar defense numbers, so I'm just going to go ahead with his. So in this description here, he threw together slot 2 and 3 defense calculations here in slot 1. So what you can see here, without support, turn 1, start a turn only 300k defense, but after he receives an attack, he'll be up to 2.2 million defense. This is on a rainbow situation. With 40% support, he can be up to 2.5 million. With the 3-turn buff active, you can still get up to 2.2 million defense at 2.5. And then in slot 2 or 3, his defense tanks quite considerably and goes down to about a 1.5 million scenario. Unfortunately, I have to say that, in slot 2, he's just not looking as defensively viable. Because in slot 2, he doesn't have 70% damage reduction before receiving an attack. He doesn't receive anything. In slot 1, he's a tank. In slot 2, he's a damage dealer, basically. But yeah, without support, slot 1 with the slot 2 or 3 active here, we can get up to a 3.3 million defense. Slot 1 with slot 2 /3 support, along with 40% support, we can get 3.6 million. So he's very safe in slot 1 defensively, so long as you have the slot 2 buff with him. And then if you get into slot 2 or 3 with the slot 1 buff specifically, then you can get up to about a 2.6 million defense. Now that's still pretty safe, but we do need to keep in mind that he only has, 20% damage reduction in slot 2? So let's see here. After receiving an attack as the first attacker in a turn, he'll have a damage reduction rate of 20% for 3 turns. And as the second or third attacker in the slot, he just has that 70% damage reduction, or 70% dodge chance. So, unfortunately, the whole entire thing right here is not considered for 3 turns. The only part of this that's carried over into slot 2 would be the key +3 attack +100% and defense +200% and damage reduction rate of 20% for 3 turns. So you would only have 20% damage reduction in slot 2 in this case. So the only way to get around that and to get more damage reduction at 50% is if you use the active skill in slot 1, so that he'll get the damage reduction, the extra 30% damage reduction right here, and the defense +400%. Because we already tested this, so we know for a fact that if you use the active in slot 2, he gets the dodge chance. So that means the whole part of the second and third passive does transfer over on active. So theoretically, if you activate his active in slot 1 and then put him into slot 2, he should technically have 50% damage reduction at the very least, along with all his extra amount of defense buffs on active specifically. So Tien is very safe on active in any slot, but you really need to be careful in slot 2. If you know for a fact that he's going to take a 5+ million super, I would not put him into that slot because he will not survive. Tien does not have guard. He's got a little bit of damage reduction and some raw defense, and that is it. He cannot get any more than what support gives him. So be very wary about his defense position. Just assume that slot 1 is defense, which is tanking, and slot 2 is going for damage. That is what I would go moving forward assume how to use Tien. Now, these are attack calculations from Nicky Nader 216. Now, I've used his calculations on a couple other units before. I'm not 100% sure on their validity, you know, to the T, but based on private server usage, they are pretty accurate for the most part. So, in his description here, he's saying image 1 is next to Tau, so he gets some of his attack links off. So in this case, we're at about 17 million. I can tell you right now that this is pretty average. 17 million damage on his first initial super next to Tau. That's about normal. What you're seeing here, this number, this 30, is on a double super. You're never going to double super with Tien because you shouldn't be giving him additional, and I'll get into that in a minute with his build suggestions, but 17 million is about accurate. If you get him 1 stack, he'll probably be in the 20 plus million. 2 stacks, probably around the 23, 22 million. I'm considering Rainbow and, you know, getting some support in there. On the second image, he has in slot 2 with Tau, 68 million. That's definitely about right. Once you get to like kind of end game stuff, you should be seeing about 80, 90 million potentially. I'm not really sure where he's getting that huge number right there. Image 3, 80%. Slot 2, slot 1, and 4 stacks with active. So 4 stacks is pretty aggressive. 4 stacks is turn 1, turn 3, turn 5, and turn 7. So that means Tien would have had to super every single one of those turns. It's not potentially possible that that will happen. It could be very possible you'll get to an endgame fight and you only have 3 stacks, maybe 4. I can tell you that this is definitely not accurate on the 97 million. I can tell you you'll get to like 80, 90 million on his initial supers. But if he's considering this with active, this makes sense. With active, 163 million damage on the active itself, and then that buffs up his damage quite a bit considerably. Then yeah, I can definitely see this in slot 2 hitting 97 million, going over 100 million almost damage. And then his additional super being 75 mil does sound about right. So he is definitely a hard-hitting unit. But the thing about this is that a unit is only as good as their hidden potential and, well, their kit, their passive. And unfortunately, for Tien, he has no built-in crit whatsoever. He has all of this damage with no crit. No crit whatsoever. He has attacks effective against all types. That's it. I'm sorry to tell everyone in the viewing room, that's not good enough anymore. That was good enough 2 years ago. That was good enough 3 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. That was good enough years ago. Post 9th anniversary content, no. Attacks effective against all types is not the same as a critical. We have bosses that have 80% damage reduction. We have bosses that have guard. We have bosses with 250 million plus 500 million HP. You need crit. You need to ignore defense. You need to get past that damage reduction. You need crit for these high damage dealing units. Tau, LR, EZA, Broly, this Tien, all of them need crit. If they don't have it built into their passive, you need it out of their hidden potential. And I'm sorry to say for Tien, he needs to be built for crit. So getting into that, for his hidden potential, 55% right here. Starting off, he's an STR unit, so he starts off with a level 5 crit initially, which is good. Just use this level, the silver and the bronze of a level 5 silver and a level 2 bronze crit equips. Get that up to a level 12. A level 12 is equivalent to a 24% chance to crit. It's not amazing. It's better than nothing, though. It's better than nothing. I'm telling y'all, you're going to stack this guy up like heck in a fight. You're going to use his active skill. You're not going to see it crit, and he's only going to take out like a bar or 2 of damage, and it's only because he only has no crit. If he doesn't crit, he's not going to do that much damage. Moving on to his 1 dupe build. Once again, we're just pushing further into full-on crit. Now, with one dupe, which should be on the bottom right-hand corner path of your hidden potential, you should get an extra 9 points into one singular area. So that will put you at level 14 naturally without any equipment. So with the same silver and bronze equip, you should get that up to a 21%. A level 21 critical is a 42% chance to crit. Much better chance with only one dupe. Now, I was initially going to put this level 3 because you'll have one node left. You'll have one node left. I suggest you put it into dodge. You don't have to put it into dodge. You can put it into additional. That's fine. I can completely understand anybody that wants to put in additional instead of dodge. I totally get it. But y'all got to understand that his defense capability in slot 2 is nothing. And if you get to a point in any fight where you can't bounce him back between slot 1 and slot 2 and keep up those stacks of buffs from his passive, it's going to literally come down to a dodge or die scenario. And that's just not good enough. Like I said, that 75% damage reduction is only for the first attack that comes at him. After that first attack, you only got 50% damage reduction in slot 1. And in slot 2, you only have 20% damage reduction. That's not good enough with his defense when we have 4, 5, 6 million supers, critical hits coming in at us. It's just not good enough. He's going to become a very dodge-heavy unit in the future. As much as I want to see more damage out of him, his raw amount of his damage just comes from his initial 18 key super plus from his active. That's where it comes from. If you're in a mission or a fight that requires him to additional, man, you might as well go to the casino. You might as well go to the casino because no amount of additionals you give him is going to be guaranteed to go off and to just be so low amount because you really just need to give him crit or it's not even worth having additionals. You need the crit. You need that extra damage. Which gets me put into the final part of this build suggestion, which is going to be into fully duped up, go for full crit, level 20 because he's an STR unit, use the silver and gold equip for a crit, and then for the bronze equip, switch out the crit for a attack orb. It's not going to be a ginormous difference in damage, but it will be a good chunk. Alternatively, if you so choose, you can definitely just go ahead and go literally full on crit. It's an extra 4% chance to crit. In my personal experience with like LREZA Broly, there have been times where the bro has a 60% chance to crit straight up and he still hadn't crit, and I just keep arguing with myself about replacing that bronze attack orb on my Broly with another crit orb because sometimes he just doesn't crit and he triple supers and it drives me insane. And I have a feeling I'm going to have the same experience with Tien one of these days if I ever get enough dupes for him. And I'm just going to want him to crit, but he's never going to crit for me because I didn't give him enough. So, but that's my suggestion for his build suggestions. Once again, I completely understand if you want to switch the dodge out for additional. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like you're just doing yourself a disservice if you don't focus on crit for this guy. I just feel like you're just doing a disservice. If you feel that attack's effective against all types is good enough, all the power to you. All the power to you. That's cool. That's not my personal suggestion, though. These are just suggestions. So, moving on, let's go to the role tips and get to the end of this video because I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing me talk. Role tips why he's a damage dealer. That's what Tien is. That's what Tao is. They have a gimmicky kind of amount of defense and passive kind of support you got to work around. But Tao is his best leader to be run under. He himself is his next best leader. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot of 200% options. He has a lot of 170% options, but he doesn't have a lot of 200% options. As far as partners go, your best partner is just Tao and then Path to Power Kid Goku. Purely because Path to Power Kid Goku supports. He actually ends up being a better partner technically than Tao, but Tao can be flip-flopped between slot 1 and slot 2 without really having any issues, unlike Kid Goku, who needs to either be floated or be in slot 2. In the future, if STR Krillin actually does EZA relatively within the 10th, 11th year, I think Tien could use him as a good, decent partner to flip-flop back and forth. Good support, good links. And I just threw in Mai just because she's a support unit for Dragon Ball Saga. Now, as best slot position goes, as I said before, you need to flip-flop him back and forth between slot 1 and slot 2 to keep up his buffs. But in general speaking, when you're doing this, you should keep in mind on how he should be used. In slot 1, he is more of a tank, and in slot 2, he's going to be doing absurd amounts of damage. The highest amount of damage you're really going to see in slot 1 probably will hit maybe 25 million. It really highly depends on your dupes and your support on the team, but I think about 20 to 25 million is going to be your average amount of damage in slot 1. Whereas in slot 2, you're going to easily see 60, 70, 80, 90 plus million damage. So there is a huge difference, but that's only if you've been flip-flopping him between slot 1 and slot 2 positions. That's just the way it is. You can float off Tien, but I don't know. With the amount of damage he can do, you really want to keep his stacks up, and if you can't keep his stacks up, you're not going to see a lot of damage towards the end of a fight. So, I think that's going to be it. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all my suggestions for this LR Extreme Tien. I like him. I think he's cool. I think he's fun. I think he's very weird, but it's interesting how they designed him on his ideal team. I just feel like with the slot switching between slot 1 and slot 2, it's going to hurt him in the future as far as reliability. You can't always use him at the right exact time. He's more of a build up, you know, you got to build him up as you go. So you really got to work with him. And I do feel like it's a poor time for him to be releasing because this is right before the global Dokkan celebration where we're going to have anniversary level units coming out in the next month or so, and we don't know if he's going to be better or worse. We really don't know. Or the same level, who knows. So let me know down in the comments if you're going to actually summon for him, or are you going to just use those free Dokkan Day tickets and hope for the best? Maybe grab them later with some yellow coins. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Let me know how you decide to build him and what teams you used. And thank you for watching. Have a good day and a good night.